Getting better at art is easy. You just have to be born with talent.
Bruh.
See, I used to think that because all the videos and tutorials were available online and I still never seemed to improve. In fact, I got rejected from art school twice. And only now, having made it to art school, do I realize that it's not what you learn, but how you learn that makes the difference. And in this video, I'm going to show you the simple 3-step framework to consistently improve your art so that you can go from this to this regularly. But don't worry, this is not my tinfoil hat theory on how to get better at learning. Everything I'm going to mention in this video comes from Scott Young's Get Better at Anything, which is a book I highly recommend you read if you are taking self-teaching seriously. But it all starts with 3 steps. So what are they? Well, it all begins with step number 1, which is to see. Before you can learn to do anything, you have to see it done, and you have to see it done right. The second step is to do. There's some things you can't learn without the physical experience of doing it. But if you just see and do, you're never correcting yourself and you're never improving. And that's where step 3, feedback, comes into play. Together, when you incorporate all these steps into whatever you're learning, you create an upward spiral that guarantees improvement. Now, let's see how this applies to art. For one, we can read books. Countless instructors have books: Loomis, Hampton, Peter Hahn, to name a few. But I'll do you one better. Instead of looking at the work they've already compiled and created for you, you can learn more by watching their demonstrations. Because not only do you get to see the final product, you get to see it being created. While we're on this, let me ask you a question. Have you ever watched a video from a master like Kim Jung-gi or Koteri Inc. and thought, I feel like I'm learning just watching them draw? If you have, you're not crazy. That is real. You actually did learn. And that's because humans have what's called a mirror neuron. It's the ability to imitate like no other. Imagine before we had languages and we were just barbarians. How did we learn from each other? Well, we had to do it by simply watching. So our ability to learn by just watching is strong enough that if you want to improve your drawing while doing nothing, you can literally put on a Kim Jung-gi or Peter Hahn stream and passively gain experience that way. But that's not going to be the strongest way to learn. The strongest way to learn is to combine videos with live drawings. This way, you're not only watching the master's entire process, you are taking active notes on it moment to moment. Don't just draw, take notes too. So that's how you can apply step 1 to your art. Watch videos, read books, gather the correct information. It's crucial here that what you see has to be correct. You know how they say, learn the rules before you break them? At this stage, it's all about accumulating correct information. You want to be gathering as much knowledge and downloading it from the best sources. That's step 1. That's seeing. Now, if you want a collection of the videos that I've found on YouTube that are almost too good to be free, then you can actually find them on this Milanote board. Milanote, by the way, is an organization tool for creatives, and they are the proud sponsor of today's video. So this is the resource part of the board I made for you guys, and you can see the videos I put down here are the ones that have defined the way I think about art and really packed a punch in their value. These ones should honestly be $50 videos on their own, but they're not. So if you want a list of the best resources I have, as well as other study material, then go to the link in the description. And more about Milanote later. Let's get back to step 2, which is do. So do in the context of art is pretty clear. Draw. But there are different ways to draw more effectively. If you've ever tried to draw from imagination or tried a level 5 exercise in the video I have about 25 drawing exercises, then you've probably come across a scaffolding issue. Scaffolding is a metaphor in learning for building our way up to a difficult task. And If you approach a difficult task too soon, what's going to happen is you're not going to learn as much as you could, because you're going to be A, discouraged by your lack of ability and lack of success, and B, it's just going to be way too complex for you to actually gain any good information from it. Scaffolding is the equivalent of giving yourself crutches for an exercise that might be too hard. So one example is drawing from imagination. Let's take exercise number 24 from my 25 exercises video. Exercise 24 was a highlight of your day. Now, this can be a really tough thing to do straight from ink. So an example of scaffolding this exercise is to change your medium. So ink is the hardest medium to work in. How can we create a crutch for doing that will make the exercise easier? Well, we can go from ink to ballpoint pen. Now, why ballpoint pen? Because a ballpoint pen allows you to have a soft line. It means you can find your line before you put it down on the paper. If you don't like it, you can move it to the side. If you don't like it, you can ignore it because it's so faint. Now, what's one step back from that? You can use a pencil and an eraser. So the concept of scaffolding is to adjust the difficulty of a task so that it matches your current abilities. That is the best way to learn, is by doing just on the border of what you're used to doing. If you're doing something that's way too difficult, then you're not going to be able to sustain that. You're not going to be encouraged to continue. As Scott Young says, success is the best teacher. So in the doing phase, you want to make sure that you're doing enough to feel challenged, but not challenging yourself enough to not do it. The most common exercise you're going to be doing in the do phase is taking an exercise that was demonstrated from the videos and not looking at it and applying it for yourself. It's important in the doing phase that you allow yourself to separate from the material so that you can learn for yourself what you know and you don't know. And that leads us right into stage 3, feedback, finding out what you know and don't know and acting on it. Now, it goes without saying that feedback is best served from a teacher or a tutor, which, by the way, I have slots if you want to sign up and get mentored by me. But I know that a lot of us might be brokies. I, for one, live in a basement, so I'm not always in the position where I can afford a tutor. But there are ways to get feedback that are free and effective. And the most effective and reliable feedback mechanism I've ever discovered is DFI. That's drawing from imagination. Because what it does is it instantly tests your knowledge on the subject you just studied. Now, other avenues of free feedback exist. Discord servers for one, Reddit threads, and an underrated one is note-taking. Ultimately, learning is just the process of rewiring your instincts. A kid learns from his mistake when he pets the growling dog. His instinct was to touch a dog, and he didn't realize that a growling dog would bite him. In that moment, his instinct was rewired. The next time he saw a growling dog, he lost the instinct to pet the dog. That was learning. So learning comes as a process of reflection, and there's no better way to reflect than to take notes. So this is actually the board I made for you guys to structure your learning. And I've included an art journal in here, and I've put an entry here because reflecting on insights and moments throughout your art journey is one of the best ways to be attuned to what works and what doesn't for you. And this is actually a piece of advice not from me, but from Tiago Forte, a productivity expert who wrote about it in his book, Building a Second Brain. It's a concept called detachment gain. It's the advantage of externalizing your thoughts that creates new insights and awareness. Once you say something, it becomes real. Once you write something down, it becomes permanent. And in the last 3 months, Milanote's been my second brain. It's been the place where I put everything, and you can use this for free, by the way. This entire thing will be free for you guys. And it's just been a fantastic tool. It's a place where I've been able to track references, track my accounting, make scripts, And I've even been able to create storyboards for upcoming videos. It's truly a versatile app, and if you're a creative who's interested in taking your growth seriously, then I highly recommend using Milanote. I was stoked when they reached out to me because I'd already been using their app from another YouTuber I heard about. And yeah, this video is proudly sponsored. But I've been doing a lot of talking and not a lot of drawing, so let's hit the sketchbook and I'll take you along an actual study session with me. The first thing I do anytime I hop into a study session is drawing from imagination. And today that means drawing a bunch of tigers from imagination. Now you might ask, why are you drawing from imagination before you've studied the tigers? And the answer is, if you want to learn something, isn't it best to start with what you don't know? By starting every drawing session from imagination, I'm discovering the holes in my knowledge and the gaps that I have to fill. This means that when I get into step 1, seeing, I have a standard to measure against, and I know what I'm supposed to be seeing. For example, I don't struggle with tiger tails as much as I do with the tiger's head. So when I'm looking at the way that Peter Han draws a tiger, or Dong Ho Kim, or Kim Jung-gi, I've now primed my mind to focus on the head because that's what I lack knowledge in and not the tail. In doing this, you make seeing professional work so much more effective because your weaknesses have now signaled themselves to be addressed. Gather all the artworks and videos that are relevant to the topic of your study, and like I said, the best way to study from them is to take notes and draw along with the artists. This is the stage where you're meant to download and accumulate as much relevant information as possible so that when we get into step 2, doing, you have a wealth of knowledge to act upon. At this point, put away everything you've done so far and find reference images. The ones I've got here are actually available in the study session board under references, and you can see the tigers that I've used for the video. As I'm drawing these tigers from photo reference, I'm constantly thinking about what decision Kim Jung-gi would have made, what decision Peter Han would have made. And I'm trying my best to draw in their style and adopt their frame of thinking. After all, the best artists steal, right? For the people who are drawing to build the ability to draw from imagination, it's crucial that you gather photo references of an object from every angle, top, down, back, front. This way, as you're drawing your tiger, you're able to get a holistic understanding of how the form of the tiger looks overall. This is important when drawing it from imagination because you don't want to just understand what the back of a tiger looks like. You have to understand the tiger somewhat like a sculpture or a Lego block. You need to be able to understand that it is an object that can rotate around. And something I do is a process called mannequinization, where you break down the subject into memorable, simplified forms. This is the way to recall it from imagination. And while this may not look like the tiger, it is the best way to build up an understanding of how tigers look so that you can recall it from imagination. If I instead focused on the tiger's stripe patterns, I would never be able to memorize enough about the tiger to draw it from imagination. So after studying the tiger from multiple angles and attempting to understand the three-dimensional form of it, the best way to cement my understanding in and lock it in place is to go on to step 3 and provide feedback. So as mentioned, feedback in this regard is drawing from imagination. Sometimes you can go send your work to a mentor, sometimes you can ask for feedback on a forum, but far and away, the most reliable metric for feedback is to draw from imagination and give yourself notes on what you struggle with. Maybe it's a certain angle, maybe it's a certain pose, maybe it's a certain pattern. As you can see here, I have a pretty consistent struggle with the tiger in poses that aren't static. So the next time I study, I'm going to study tigers with their limbs out and understand how their arms connect to their rib cage. I also struggle with rotating the form of the tiger overall. This is something that will continue to build generally as I practice tigers more often. So feedback is only half the solution. This is nearing the end of our study session, and this is where we bring back all the learning resources we used previously. Everything we used in the seeing phase, all the drawings, all the notes, and we cross-reference those notes against the drawings we made today. And this is the stage where we compare what a professional is doing to what we aren't. And as I mentioned, taking notes is so helpful. So go back and take notes, critique yourself. You know what you struggled with. Write it down, and you're guaranteed to remember it better than if you didn't. So that's how I study my drawings from a day-to-day basis to see improvement. I'm proud of how much I've improved in the last few months with this structure, going from drawing like this just a couple months ago to making something like this that I wouldn't have thought I would be able to make that quickly. So it really works, but just the day-to-day isn't enough if you want to see progress like this, because you need to know the long-term goal that you're trying to accomplish. It's the only way you're going to have focus and clarity to see that sustained improvement. And don't worry, because I've made that easy for you as is part of the study board that I've made. So if you go into the board, you'll see this table. And what this table is meant to do is help you break down a goal into several smaller bits and pieces to the point where you can take one task today and get started on it, and you're making tangible progress towards your goal. So the way it goes is you pick a goal. What is your dream project? Is it a job at a specific studio? Is it a specific outcome? Is it a specific piece? It can be as big as being a concept artist at Riot, or as small as making one illustration you're proud of. Whatever it is, put the work that inspires you to make it in the inspiration folder beside it. From there, we can break down a major goal into two segments: skills and milestones. Milestones are what will you have to have accomplished to get to that goal. So for example, for a comic, it's like a milestone for a comic is the inking phase, is the thumbnail phase, is the script, right? So each of those is a milestone. And then skills goes beside that in tandem. What do you have to have learned in order to be able to achieve your goals? So once you've broken down your goal into skills and milestones, you can find a project or multiple projects that build up to your goal. I want to make a comic book series. That's a big goal, and that takes multiple projects. So one project in itself could be, I want to make a comic book, one. But even then, you can break it down. A project could be, I want to make a script for one issue. That in itself will take a little bit of time, but that is a project that will challenge you and build relevant skills, and that's what's important. From there, you break down that project into pieces. What do you need to make for the project? Okay, if it's a script, it's 20 pages of writing. That's the first act, the second act, and third act. For a project like mine, which you'll be able to see, I'll include the example below. My goal is to draw on the THU wall, do a live drawing in front of an art convention by 2030. So that can be seen. The inspiration is from Dong Ho Kim, Peter Han, and what Kim Jong-gi used to do every year. It's a lofty goal I hope to achieve in the next 5 years, but you know what? The time isn't necessarily relevant. It's the structure you accomplish that with. So I've broken down my milestones here. I've picked my projects. And so from the project, you pick pieces you need to make to bring the project to fruition. For example, I want to build a reference library. If you want to draw from imagination, you need a strong reference library, right? And that's why I studied tigers. So maybe a piece I could make is mannequinization, as you saw. Maybe I create a page of tiger drawings, and that's my piece. Or I draw from observation. There's a whole world of things you can do to improve your skills, but the idea is that you're supposed to think about the goal you want. And when you're picking these exercises, think about which one task would help me in the most areas. For example, mannequinization takes the ability to draw in form construction. But form construction is going to help me not only with mannequinization, but with perspective, but with anatomy, vehicles, and so many other things. That's why I choose to study form drawing first and foremost, and I apply mannequinization to everything I do. Because if you can understand the form, like a Lego piece, then you can start putting Lego pieces together to make whatever you want. By the way, if you haven't watched it yet, do watch the 25 drawing exercises. It is this and that together can create your scaffolding for your whatever art project you want to take on. So by filling this out, you're not only going to make your day-to-day studies effective, you're going to tie in your day-to-days into monthly projects that help you achieve your yearly goals. And you can do that all in this Milo note board I created for you guys. And you can even adjust them. So not only do you have these boards I've made, you have an inspiration board, an art journal, you can even add your own board for whatever you want. So let's say you want to make a storyboard, then you have the ability to do that by picking the storyboard template. Or you want to plan your week, just pick the weekly plan template, right? There's a mood board. Milo note has hundreds of boards that no matter what creative project you're taking on, it will help you. That's why they are the proud sponsor of today's video, and you can download Milo note for free. You can do all this for free right in the link below. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.